Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. This is our weekly book reading of Noah's Ark. Like I said last time as well, if you want to join us, catch up to page 34. Again, like I said last time, we are going to read more in every session. Last time we read 4 pages. Today, again, I will try to read 4 or 5 pages because we do want to finish this book eventually, right? If we do read just 1 page, it will take us 100 days to finish it. If you read 4 or 5 pages, we can do it by midsummer, right? When it gets busy, especially if we can finish it before Ramadan, it will be wonderful. Ramadan is starting in May, so it's not very far off. So let's start on page 34. And secondly, I do want to request once again that all of you should have a book with you when you come to this. If you have a device, this is the best use of that device. Alislam.org, Noah's Ark in the search bar, download the PDF, go to page 34 of the book. Maybe PDF page is different. I'm going to start while you get there. So the Prophet ﷺ says, when you stand up in prayer, it is necessary for you to have firm faith that your God has power over all things. Only then will your prayer be accepted, and you will behold the wonders of God's power that we have beheld. Our testimony is based on observation and not on hearsay. How should the supplication of a person be accepted, and how should he have the courage to pray at times of great difficulty, when according to him he is opposed by the law of nature, unless he believes that God has power over everything? O fortunate ones, follow not these practices. Your God is one who holds aloft innumerable stars without the use of columns, and who has created heaven and earth from nothing. Then would you think so ill of him as to imagine that your objective is beyond his power? Such ill thinking will frustrate you. Our God possesses countless wonders, but they are visible only to those who become his out of sincerity and loyalty. And this is on page 35, by the way. He does not disclose his wonders to those who do not believe in his power and who are not sincere and loyal to him. How unfortunate is the man who even now is unaware that there is a God who has power over all things. Our paradise lies in our God. Our highest delight is in our God, for we have seen him and found every beauty in him. This wealth is worth procuring, though one might have to lay down one's life to procure it. This ruby is worth purchasing, though one may have to lose oneself to acquire it. O ye who are deprived, hasten to this fountain, as it will satiate you. It is this fountain of life that will save you. What am I to do? How shall I impress the hearts with this good news? What sort of a drum am I to beat in the streets in order to make the announcement that this is your God, so that people might hear? What remedy shall I apply to the ears of the people, so that they should listen? If you become one with God, rest assured that God too will be yours. God Almighty shall remain awake for you as you sleep. God shall watch over your enemy and frustrate their designs while you are unmindful of him. You still do not know the extent of God's powers. Had you known, not a single day would you have grieved over the world. Does he who own a treasure weep, cry and become sorrowful unto death over the loss of a single coin? Had you been aware of this treasure and knew that at every time of need God is able to fulfill your requirements, why would you look to the world so restlessly? God is a precious treasure. Appreciate him accordingly, for he is your helper at every step. You are nothing without him, nor do your resources and your schemes amount to anything. Do not follow other people, for they have become wholly reliant on material means. Just as a snake devours dirt, they consume
the filth of inferior worldly means. They gorge themselves on carrion in the manner of vultures and dogs. They have become estranged from God. They have worshipped men, devoured the flesh of swine, and consumed wine as though it were water. They have become lifeless, for they place all their reliance on material resources and do not seek the help of God. The heavenly soul has escaped their bodies as a pigeon flies from its nest. They are afflicted with the leprosy of material worship, which has consumed their internal organs. Thus, beware of this leprosy. I do not forbid you to employ material means within moderation, only that you do not become slaves to them like other nations, and that you do not forget the God who is the very provider of these means. Had you possessed insight, you would have seen that God is everything and all else is nothing. This is page 37, first line. One cannot so much as stretch or fold one's arms without his will. One who is spiritually dead may laugh at this, but physical death would have been better for him than such ridicule. Beware, though other nations have progressed far in their worldly designs, do not envy them and seek to follow in their footsteps. Listen and know well that they are wholly unaware and unmindful of the God who calls you to himself. What is their God? Only a helpless mortal. Thus they are languishing in heedlessness. I do not forbid you from the trade and business of the world. Rather, I exhort you not to imitate those who have considered the world to be everything. In all that you do, whether material or religious, continue to supplicate God so that you may be granted strength and ability. Your supplications should not be confined to mere lip service, but you ought to truly believe that every blessing descends from heaven. You will become righteous only when in every time of need or difficulty, prior to employing any plan, you shut your door and fall down at the threshold of God with your difficulty and supplicate to him so that he may resolve it by his grace. You will then be helped by the Holy Spirit, and a path will be opened for you from the unseen. Have mercy on your souls, and do not follow those who have completely cut themselves off from God and depend wholly on material means, to the extent that they do not even seek strength from Allah by saying Inshallah. May God open your eyes, and we are now on page 38. May God open your eyes so that you should realize that he is the central beam of all your plans. If this beam should fall, can the rafters continue to support the roof? Indeed not, for they would suddenly fall and would perhaps even cause a loss of life. In the same way, your plans cannot succeed without the help of God. If you do not seek his assistance and do not make it your rule to seek strength from him, you will never achieve anything and will die in immense sorrow. Do not wonder why other nations seem to succeed, while they are not even aware of the existence of God, who is your perfect and mighty Lord. The answer is that they have been subjected to the trial of the world on account of their abandoning God. At times he opens the doors of the world to a person who forsakes him and seeks the joys and pleasures of the world and runs after its riches in order to try him. Such a one is wholly bereft and deprived in respect of religion. In the end, he dies with his mind devoted wholly to the world and is cast into an eternal hell. At other times, the trial of God is such that a person is deprived of this world as well. But this latter kind of trial is not as dangerous as the former, for the one who is subjected to the former is more arrogant. In any case, both these groups are described as those who have incurred the wrath of God. We're going to stop here. This is on page 38, end of the paragraph, almost at the bottom actually. And then we're going to start from God is the fountainhead of true prosperity next time. Acha, interestingly, there is only one theme in these 4 or 5 pages. What is that theme? Can you describe it?
That God has power over everything.
God has power over everything. Can you say that in one word? Is there a word that describes that?
Almighty?
He's almighty, but it's the true concept of Tawheed, right? That God is the source of everything good. God is the source of all power, and the Prophet ﷺ has talked about this in many places, and this is on page 34 as well. The ill thinking that if you're asking God for something and then you're not sure if God is able to provide that or not. You know, some people have that thought process. Okay? So, reliance on God and knowing that what you're asking for, God has the power to provide that to you. Okay? That's that is how he starts the subject, and then the famous quotation comes in on page 35, which we've heard many times. Our paradise is in our God. Our comfort is in God. He is the fountainhead that will satiate you. Those kind of sentiments. Very powerful quotation you will hear many times in different programs and Jamaat Ijlasat. And then coming back to that connection with God, right, which is part and parcel of this subject. And then again, he keeps on emphasizing, and he keeps on talking to a person who is resisting this thought. He's like, God is a precious treasure. Appreciate Him. You still do not know. You need to understand. You know, that's a sort of a tarbiti way of that passionate talk. You can see the emotions come out of the page. This is by far pages 34 and 35 and 36 are by far the strongest expression of the Promised Messiah's passion. You know, it's very strong passion in these 2 pages. And if you read the books of the Promised Messiah, these are some of the strongest. You know, when it comes to books that he wrote down, right, like this, they're a bit formal. They don't get passionate like this. But this book is not just formal, but in this part it becomes very emotional. If you read Malfuzat, Malfuzat has a lot of emotion because the Prophet ﷺ is talking more casually. He's talking to his companions after Fajr, they go for a walk, or he's talking at an Ijlas, or he's talking at a Jalsa Salana speech, whatnot. Those are very passionate, different tone to the way he's talking. And of course, not as authentic as this because people are writing his words, like it's coming through someone else, but still, you see that emotion. But here, when it comes to writing, it's a bit formal, right? So you see those emotions here. And then a lot of analogies and comparison. He says these people who go after the world are like going after dogs, or it's like a snake devouring dirt. That kind of analogies he uses to as an example to consolidate his point. And then he also makes the important point that all this emphasis on staying away from the world doesn't mean that you have to abandon it. So what is he saying? What should we do when it comes to the world and religion?
Balance.
Balance? What is the word he uses? Page 36.
Moderation.
Yes. Right? Take things in moderation. Right? Don't become extremists. Don't become like even in religion people can become extremists. Right? We see in ISIS and all that stuff. And in worldly things people become extremists the other way. They're like, forget about God, forget about namazim, forget about thing. You don't want to be that side of the spectrum either. You want to find that middle ground. Right? Islam as a religion is called Deen-e Wusta, the religion of the middle path, or the religion of moderation. Okay? Let me just quickly, I'll come to your questions. Quickly, I'm on page 37 already. So the other point he makes is about the worldly nations. So he's talking about the other extreme. He's saying that look at the worldly nations. What are they doing? The worldly nations are progressing. So how do we react? You see I don't know, the United States. Nowadays, it's not as powerful as it probably used to be. Well, in his time, it was the British Empire. Nowadays, we have the United States or China or these powerful nations. And China is literally anti-religion, right? We see that. But they're progressing. So how do we react?
Don't be envy of them.
Yeah, don't be envious and don't think, oh, ye itne aage chale, they're doing so well. I mean, we are religious and we're not doing so well. So why?
Because they're unmindful of God.
They're unmindful of God. But how should we perceive them? How should we perceive their progress? It's on page 38.
Trial.
Do not wonder why other nations seem to succeed while they're not even aware of the existence of God. What is the answer? He says the answer is that
It's a trial.
they are going through a trial. And then he says there are two types of trials. What are the two types of trials? You were thinking I'm coming to the end of page 38, so no need to listen. Two types of trial. You don't know this because you don't have your books in front of you, or you weren't reading with me. Were you?
It says the person is deprived of this world and the one is the former more arrogant one, right?
You are almost there, but what he's trying to say is that there is one trial where a person is enjoying this world, but he's going to punish in the hereafter. He's going to be punished in the hereafter. And there is the other guy who is punished in this world. He's better off. Why? Because Allah is punishing him in this world, and maybe the world in the hereafter, his punishment is reduced or is not even there. But the guy who's being let go, do whatever you want, and Allah is saying, who cares? You do whatever you want, and you will be punished in the hereafter. That's the more dangerous person to be.
The spiritual dead and spiritual alive.
Right?
Right.
That person is like, totally abandoned. And he's punished in the hereafter. And that's more dangerous. So don't look at these people who are all doing very well in the worldly sense, but in the spiritual sense, they are the worst off. Right? It's not mentioned here, but in another place, the promised Messiah ﷺ talks about the Jews and the Christians. And it's, again, it's not that we're talking about any Jews or Christians specifically. It's more like a theological academic statement. So the Jews, if you look at them, right, they suffered a lot, right? Even in the Bible it's talked about how Allah punished them for some of their, as the Bible calls it, iniquities or sins, right? The Prophet ﷺ says that is still a slightly better position to be in, because Allah punished them in this life, but in the next life maybe He forgives them. Same thing going on with the Muslims nowadays. They're non-Ahmadi Muslims who are being punished in this life. Their worldly sense, they are really bad off. And because they haven't accepted the Imam at the time, but then maybe the next life, Allah will forgive them, and because their punishment is done. But Christians, or not Christians specifically, but materialistic people, you look at them, they're enjoying this life, but then the punishment will come in the hereafter. You understand? That's the sort of like the theme that is in page 38. Okay? And he says, don't even be like those people who don't say what? Don't be like those people who don't say what? Page 37, last line.
Inshallah, yes, yeah.
Inshallah. Right?
Yes.
We have to say inshallah.
Inshallah, yeah.
Noah's Ark next Monday. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Right?
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
We have to say that. It's very important. We have to say salam in the beginning of every message. We have to say inshallah every time we're talking about the future. We are not making that future. Allah has a control over that future. So we say, if Allah wills. It's a blessing. It's like a prayer. It's actually a prayer. Okay. Oh Allah, please do it. Please make it happen. Right? हमें तो ये भी नहीं पता ना that once we leave from the masjid, whether we get home or not. We don't know. So we always say inshallah. ठीक है, that's what it is. जी Kaisam.
So sir, when you're talking about the passionate, the one who is passionate, one who is the extremist also has some passion, right? You can't say he's not passionate, or sometimes the guy who has a passionate, you might see him, it looks like he's a guy very extreme into the religion.
So what's your point?
I mean, you cannot. There's no way you can say this guy has a passion, but he's not an extreme guy.
Somebody is so religiously passionate, he goes and kills someone. Is that valid?
No, Mr.
No. Answer the question. Is that valid?
No.
It's not valid. अपने दिमाग में तो वो यही समझ रहा था ना मैं सही काम कर रहा हूँ कोई किसी को ऐसे तो नहीं जाके मारता unless someone has a mental health issue they don't go kill someone with but people get angry it's valid I'm allowed to do it my religion says it's okay and he takes the law in his own hands goes and kills someone is that right or wrong? It's wrong. No matter how passionate and how justified he may be he's not allowed to do that. He's breaking the law. समझ आई? So दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा criminal भी है ना in his mind he's justified. What is that? There was a Canadian serial killer. What's his name?
Robert Victor.
Was that? No.
It's more
There was a serial killer.
One right now that's Bruce.
There was one in the 1980s or something. I forget. I was listening to some tape about him on CBC, and he's justifying all the women he killed. Right? Of course, he's justifying it.
In Quebec, he was saying they were taking their jobs and whatnot.
Yeah, there was some justification.
He went to college and
Bro,
crime
crime is always justified. Crime is always justified. Whether the justification is through religion or some other justification.
Is it?
But it's wrong.
Is it like
It's wrong.
Clifford Robert Olson?
I think that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one. It's wrong. No matter how justified you are. If you study criminology, there's a justification, but it's wrong. That's what it is. So religiously we somebody comes and says, I want to say namaz all day. I'm going to start at 3 in the morning, I'm going to keep going until 10 at night. Is that right? No, it's wrong. There are times when you're not allowed to pray. If the sun is coming up, the sun is going down, after Asr namaz, there are times a day when you're not allowed to pray because Allah doesn't want you to become an extremist. और दूसरी बात ये है, the other thing is that we cannot please Allah with our actions. Christianity calls it justification by faith or justification by works. These are two extreme ends of the spectrum, right? Christianity would say justification by faith only, especially Protestant. They're actually built on this concept. Martin Luther actually started the whole thing on this idea of justification by faith only, right? Jews, according to the Christian perspective, the Jews are justification by actions. And according to Martin Luther, the Catholic Church also is really emphasizing actions, good works, over faith. But now later on, Catholics actually sort of came in the middle. They're like, yeah, faith and good works, both are important, right? But they say faith is more important. I think we could agree with that. I think we could agree with the fact that allazina amanu wa amilu salihat. Amanu wa amilu salihat. Amanu is believe. Amilu salihat, do good works. But amilu salihat actually has more connotations. We'll talk about it some other time. So both faith and good works are important.
Can't just do one.
Right? There's a hadith which says, it's an interesting story. We'll end it here. Time is almost up. The Holy Prophet ﷺ said, and Hazrat Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu was there, Man qala la ilaha illallahu dakhal al-jannah. ठीक है Noor? Are you listening? Can you sit up please? Man qala la ilaha illallahu dakhal al-jannah. Does anybody know the translation? Khatab? Easy. Try.
The Holy Prophet
Holy Prophet
said that I know
Man qala, whoever says La ilaha illallahu
Will be entering
dakhal al jannah.
will be entering into Jannah.
whoever says La ilaha illallah will enter paradise. Hazrat Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu was so excited. He's like, yeah. So he went out, started saying it to the people. Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu heard this, and he pushed him. He's like, what are you saying? Hazrat Abu Hurairah is like, that's the hadith, I just heard it. Hazrat Umar is like, you're not gonna spread this around. Come, let's go back to the Holy Prophet. And so we took him back, and we went to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and Hazrat Abu Hurairah made his case, and Hazur is like, yes, this is true. That's what I said. And Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu then said, Hazur, if we start saying this to the people, they'll just depend on this statement, and they'll stop doing anything. And the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, okay, yeah, you are right also. That if people misunderstand this, they will stop doing namazing, they'll stop doing droze, they'll stop doing everything, and they'll be like, oh, la ilaha illallah, I'm good. Right? No. The point is the one who says from the heart, la ilaha illallah, there's none worthy of worship except Allah, then he would follow whatever Allah says, right? It's coming from the heart. It's not just lip service. Right? And the whole crux of this faith and good works, the whole crux of this is actually in this hadith. Right? That is, if it's coming from the heart, automatically your actions will follow your faith. And you know what happens is, I think, this is my personal assessment, that when Martin Luther did that thing with the faith only, a lot of Christians actually went the wrong way. Because they were like, faith only. And then they abandoned all the good works. Which I think is again wrong. There has to be a balance. Moderation. Deen e wisdom. So we'll end here. If you guys have any questions, I'll take it after the live stream. Can you turn it off, please?